Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This one? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Shrimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 24, the Renunciation of Kadamba Muni, text number 5. Maitreya Uvacha Devahutyapi sandesham Gauravena Prajapate Sanyak Sradaya Purusham Kuttastam Abhajat Gurum Maitreya Uvacha Devahutyapi sandesham Gauravena Prajapate Sanyak Sradaya Purusham Kutastam Abhajat Gurum Was? Vers Nummer 4, du hast falsch angeschaut. Oh. Okay. Mataji's. So Advaita just informed me that by mistake the wrong verse was put on the board, and it should actually be text number 4. And this is number 5. Anyway, we'll read the translation. Sri Maitreya said, Devahuti was fully faithful and respectful toward the direction of her husband Kadamba, who was one of the Prajapatis, or generators of human beings in the universe. O great sage, she thus began to worship the Master of the universe, the Supreme Personality Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart. Then we go back to text number 4. Satvaya radita suklo vitanvan mamakam yasaha chitate hridaya grantim udarya brahma bhavanaha. Translation. The personality of Godhead, being worshipped by you, will spread my name and fame. He will vanquish the knot of your heart by becoming your son and teaching knowledge of Brahman. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes to disseminate spiritual knowledge for the benefit of all people, he generally descends as the son of a devotee, being pleased by the devotee's devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the father of everyone. No one, therefore, is his father, but by his inconceivable energy he accepts some of the devotees as his parents and descendants. It is explained here that spiritual knowledge vanquishes the knot of the heart. Matter and spirits are knotted by false ego. This identification of oneself with matter, which is called Hridaya Granthi, exists for all conditioned souls, and it becomes more and more tightened when there is too much affection for sex life. The explanation was given by Lord Rishabh to his sons that this material world is an atmosphere of attraction between male and female, that attraction takes the shape of a knot in the heart, and by material affection it becomes still more tight for people who hanker after material possession, society, friendship, and love, the knot of affection becomes very strong. It is only by Brahma Bhavana, the instructions by which spiritual knowledge is enhanced, that the knot in the heart is cut to pieces. No material weapon is needed to cut this knot, but it requires bona fide spiritual instruction. Karna Muni instructed his wife Devahuti that the Lord would appear as her son and disseminate spiritual knowledge to cut the knot of material identification. Om Agyana Timirandasya Yanandana Salakya Shakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, we are reading Shrimad Bhagavatam, and we're reading about personalities who have dovetailed their material desires in the service of the Lord. It's not possible to be free from desire. Every living being has desire. And because by nature we have desires, therefore material desires are very natural. As soon as one takes birth in the material world, so many material desires are there, dictating everything we do. So in this way, we are going on in our life from one desire to another. We desire to be powerful, we desire to be beautiful, we desire to be rich, we desire to have a beautiful partner, we desire to have a few nice houses, a few cars. There's no limit, maybe a private plane, or we desire to be a renounced yogi, whatever it is, we desire so many things. All these desires, they are like asking to be fed. They are hungry. Kamadinam kotita pulita duni desas tesam jatamayina karunadata patraya. Rupa Goswami explains that these senses, they are demanding. They're demanding. They want many things constantly. And so that is generally what preoccupies us. And when we give in to the desires of the senses, then the senses become stronger and stronger, and the desires become stronger, and a knot is formed within the heart. Srila Prabhupada here refers to Lord Rishabdev, and Lord Rishabdev says, Pumsastriya mituni bhavam etam ridaya gratim aho griya ksita aptivitya janasya moho yam aham mameti. So, it is stated that when a man and woman unite in sexual activity, then immediately in the heart this knot becomes very strong. This knot to enjoy now becomes very strong, and there is very strong attachment. And then that expands into griya, kshetra, into a house, into some land, into children, into some wealth, into friendship, into society. And all these things create an identity. I am from such and such place, I have this and this position, and therefore, that is me. Janasyamohoyam aham mameti. And this is the bodily identification. So, to rise above this bodily identification is the duty of any sage. A sage is meant to cultivate detachment from material life and to cultivate attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to pleasing the Supreme Lord. Admendriya pritivanshatara bolikam krishnendriya printiyachadhara premanam. It is satisfying the senses of Krishna. That is the objective in the life of a devotee, somehow or other. And this activity actually frees us from this knot within the heart. Chetodarpanam marjanam bhavamahadavapni nirvapanam. All the many material desires will gradually diminish by engaging in devotional service. So that is our business. Now that we also looked at text 5, we may as well have a further look. Devahuti, so the sage, Kadamba Muni, was pursuing a transcendental goal. He was serious in his life about spiritual life. He might have had some material desires, but he was not bewildered by the material desires. One can have material desires without being bewildered by the material desires. If we become bewildered by the material desires, then they become the goal of life. Then fulfilling them is what we desire. But if we are not bewildered by the material desires, then even when we have them, we understand that this is not what life is about. Right? Yes, of course, and there's no end to it. It is quite clear. Yes, who wants to be poor? Any volunteer? Rather not. Rather have some extra money to spend. Who wants a car that always breaks down? Rather not. Rather a new one that works well. Who wants a house where you have to fix the staircase at night when it's freezing cold? Well, okay, we'll take it if we have nothing else. But the day that they'll give us a new house, we'll take that one. That's obvious, right? So the desires, they come very natural. And these are not just desires, these are requirements. We need, underlined. So many things we need. Of course, we see that great sages, they're minimizing their needs. So Kadamba Muni was deeply rooted in transcendental knowledge. He was not at all confused about the goal of life. Although he still had a desire to enjoy the material energy, and he was still attracted to the opposite sex, and he was certainly favorable when Swayambhuva Manu came and proposed, why don't you marry my daughter? Here's this beautiful princess. Well, all right then, I'll take her, Okay then, I'll have a princess. Why not, right? So here, sage had princess. It is a little bit of when you are a princess and you have to marry a sage, that's not so easy because these sages, they don't live in palaces. They kind of live in little huts and austere dwellings, and their daily diet is not exactly what you would get in the palace. So, but Devahuti was fully understanding what she was about to begin. A relationship with a renunciant, which would be very different from her ancestral home. If you read a little back in the Bhagavatam, we see that Devahuti lived in a big palace, and that she used to play with a ball on the roof of the palace, which was very high. Prabhupada writes like skyscraper. Huh? So she was on the roof playing with a ball, and one Gandharva flew by with his plane, and when he saw her beauty, he fell out of the plane. So, anyway, it's a little colorful detail in the Bhagavatam. Gandharvas falling out of planes. So Devahuti was very beautiful, a princess, opulent, palace, beautiful dresses, servants, and the crème de la crème, the best of everything was what she had. But she was not saying to her father, forget it, I'm not going to marry a sage, I want a prince, right? So that, I can continue my royal position. You're not going to marry me to a sage. No, she never said so. Because her goal in life was not to have a palace, although she was used to it, although she was in a way conditioned by it, but it was not her goal in life. Her goal in life was deeper. Her goal in life was spiritual. That is, she was, of course, the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. And Swayambhuva Manu was a very exalted personality. He was one of the Manus, right? Manus, they live a very long time. There are 14 Manus in a day of Brahma, and if you calculate that, then one Manu lives 91 cycles of 4 yugas. So Manus, they exist on another plane than human beings. And it says the Manus, they are residing in the planetary systems which are above the heavenly planets, the Maharloka. We have the Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka. So the Maharloka is the abode of the Prajapatis, of the Manus. And the Manus are described as rulers in the universe. We see exactly how that works. It's a little unclear. But we do know that we have a Manu Samhita, law books of mankind. We also know that in Sanskrit, human beings are known as Manush. So, Manush, yes, it means that human, or the descendant of Yadu, of Manu. So we are descendants of Manu, right? So it all begins with the Prajapatis, and who populate the universe. And as such, we are descendants of Manu. So Swayambhuva Manu, although he lived in regions above the heavenly planets, and therefore all facility was very, very opulent compared to here. The conditions are very favorable. Certainly not lots of snow and someone going around with a bulldozer in the morning and throwing salt everywhere, as we see here, doing, the devotees do bulldozer parikrama. That you don't see in such places, in the Maharloka. The conditions are just very favorable. It is stated that in the higher regions of the universe, the conditions are always like Satya Yuga. It never becomes Kali Yuga like here. So they don't have these difficulties. And it means in Satya Yuga it is described that the facilities are very natural, very easy. You kind of stretch and there's a ripe mango. stretch in the other way. It's like an apple, and the juice is practically dripping out of the apple. Grains are growing naturally. The climate is just very, very conducive, and herbs and everything is easily available. Yes. So, so we see that although Swayambhuva Manu had a great palace, that he himself, as a Prajapati, spent most of his time in spiritual pursuits. That the Prajapatis, their duty is to populate the universe. In the beginning of the creation, the universe is quite empty, and it's the Prajapatis who are creating a population for the universe. And they are very conscientious. They are very serious about their duty. They don't want the wrong kind of population in the universe. And so they are aware that that according to the consciousness of the parents at the time of conception, a certain child will be attracted. Therefore, it is recommended, before one engages in sexual activity, that first we perform some level of austerity, so some purification, so that we don't get a little, a little problem case. Oh, my sweet little problem case. Saturday night in the back of the car, and oops, here it is, a child. It is said this is Varna Sankara, Jayate Varna Sankara. Now, this kind of Varna Sankara children, in their last lives, they're called Varna Sankara because Lord Shiva, he is traveling against the twilight, around the twilight, and he's followed by ghosts and hobgoblins and all kinds of creatures like that. So that's intense, right? And you can then have one of those as your children. And then it's like my little ghosty. You know, you are so nice. All right now, all right, don't bite. You can't bite anyway, you have no teeth yet. So anyway, these things are going on. Yes. So imagine, you can go in India to some astrologer, and if you pay some money, they may find a scroll which tells everything about your last life. And usually you were a prince or a princess or something like that, right? But it never says that you were a hobgoblin in your last life. But according to scripture, it is very well possible, especially when no sanskara is being performed. When Garbhadana sanskara, when the proper activity before conceiving the child is not performed, then Varna Sankara is a great risk. Hobgoblin baby. I'm not sure what a hobgoblin looks like, but one thing I know for sure, I don't want to know what a hobgoblin looks like. It's okay, I can live without meeting them. So these are the dynamics. So Kadamba Muni, when he saw Swayambhuva Manu, initially they had an external exchange where Swayambhuva Manu offered obeisances to the sage, because Swayambhuva Manu was a Kshatriya and the sage was a Brahmana. But then immediately after that, they embraced and they were very happy to meet each other because the sage knew very well that Swayambhuva Manu was an exalted spiritual personality. And as an exalted spiritual personality, Swayambhuva Manu had trained his daughter. He had trained his daughter properly. So his daughter had thoroughly understood the goal of life, and that's what it's about. We have to bring up our children to the point where they understand what's the goal of life, and where they are prepared to act upon it, where they are saved from Maya. So in this way, Devahuti, she was faithful, respectful to the direction of her husband, and Kardama Muni, as one of the Prajapatis, was also performing austerities. So she, Devahuti, following her husband, lived very austere and very simple and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Further in the chapter, we can see that her natural beauty as a princess became covered and by, not, like the dirt, by just the hardship of the weather, of the elements. She didn't have all the nice oils that she used to have as a princess, and now her skin became rough. Her hands also got callous from having to, she was carrying firewood, she was collecting water, she was cleaning, she was providing everything for a husband who lived in a simple cottage. And in this way, Devahuti was relying on the strengths of Kardama Muni. Kardama Muni had a great, deep inner determination. And such determination, if that is found within a husband, that a husband is greatly determined to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then such a husband is a qualified husband. And such a husband must be served, because by serving such a husband, one becomes also spiritually advanced. And that's the idea of the Grihastha ashram. Therefore, to get married is requiring some preparation. One cannot just jump into the Grihastha ashram. It requires some preparation. A man should be fixed on the ultimate goal of life, and should be fixed in controlling the senses, should be fixed and absorbed in devotional service and in remembering the Supreme Lord. The wife equally so. But, all right, she may have one particular material desire, right, which is very difficult to overcome, the desire to have a child. That's just somehow or other, it comes with the species, it comes with the birth. Right? That's not something we don't have a choice. This is part of the arrangement of the Supreme Lord, the desire to have a child or a number of children. That is, one might say, well, what's wrong with that? Yeah, it means that we are becoming involved with the material energy. Although the child is a spirit soul, it is within a material body, and it requires a lot of care and support and arrangements for the material body. And therefore, having a child is forcing us to interact more with the material energy than would be necessary if one wouldn't have a child. But this is all right. one can be a grihasta, and one can have children, and try to make them Krishna conscious, which is hard work, and try to be Krishna conscious ourselves, which is also very hard work. And by doing so, we can attain the perfection of life. So we don't mind whatever ashram we're in. It's not so important. Sannyasis are the spiritual head of society at large, right? But even sannyas is not sufficient for going back to Godhead, right? It is said that in the Vedic culture, that sannyasis, they would attain Brahmaloka. It's said the brahmacharis, they would attain Tapaloka. Pious householders who were selfless, they might become Prajapatis and the Mahaloka. Pious householders who want to enjoy the senses, they can become demigods. And like that, one can be placed in the universe. So even the sannyasis were not going beyond Brahmaloka. And Brahmaloka means within the universe. And within the universe, Abrahma Bhuvana Loka, Punarvatina Arjuna, Mamupechati Kuntyana Punarjamana. There, repeated birth and death takes place within the universe. So we see that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his Sampradaya, coming to us through Srila Prabhupada, is setting a very high goal for us. And now it's about devotional service. Now it is about going back to Godhead. So naturally, then sannyas is still better, right? Because one is free. There's nothing else to do. Right? There's nothing else to do. All the energy goes towards worshipping the Supreme Lord and serving the Supreme Lord. That's what it's about. So there's no compromise. In the household ashram, some compromises come in, and something for Krishna, something for me, something for Krishna, something for me. Right? That's the situation. And then sometimes, well, what can we do, Krishna? We really need it. You need to take something back. That you can never do. What is given to Krishna cannot be taken back, even if you starve. Once given, it's given. Then it's Krishna's. Becomes untouchable. Yes. So, in this way, the ashrams are an opportunity for attaining the goal of life. And we see how Kadamba Muni is perfectly following prescribed duty. In this chapter, we see Kadamba Muni, and he is the emblem of prescribed duty. It's the title of the chapter is the renunciation of Kadamba Muni, and that renunciation is that he's following prescribed duty instead of doing what his senses want. You know, he doesn't listen to his senses. Senses want things. He doesn't. Prescribed duty. It's not like, oh, it's so difficult. Oh, how can I control these senses? No. He's quite strict. But then, within marriage, yes, there is kamusmi bharastarasabha, there is sexual activity according to religious principles, and he does so, and there is also enjoyment. There is enjoyment. And that's license. That is all right. That level of enjoyment will not bind us. It will not bind us to taking another birth. That is the point. So Kadamba Muni in this way is the perfect example. Okay, I'm just gonna stop now and ask for questions, and then we'll see where it goes. Questions? No. Yes. I cannot hear because there's some stereo.
Kadamba Muni was so full of duty, and still we see that he was actually afterwards also very creative in his enjoyment. Like we would have never imagined that he would create a flying city and travel all around.
Yeah, so Kadamba Muni, although he was a renowned sage and so nicely following Dharma, he had desires, and he was a powerful yogi, and he understood that he had to offer a princess something more than a cottage. So he understood that although she tolerated it, that it was tough. This sage lifestyle for his good wife. And now that she desired children, and that there would be sexual activity according to religious principles, he wanted to restore her in her original beauty, and he made arrangements. She was being bathed in this lake, and maidservants came from the lake and dressed her. She regained her original beauty. He created a flying city and so on. He was quite powerful, and a beautiful place and so on, a beautiful facility, and even better than her father had. Yes, so Kadamba Muni also had his material desires, and he made arrangements to fulfill his material desires, but not out of the realm of Dharma. That's the point. So any householders in our movement can also have flying cities, or or whatever they can create that comes close to that. That's okay. One can have a nice arrangement as a householder, but not outside of prescribed duty. No sinful activities in that beautiful house. No illicit sex in that beautiful house. No intoxication in that beautiful house. And give to the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada was speaking about giving 50% of the income to the Lord. 50%. How can it be done? And is that 50% of what? Of gross or of net income? 50% of the profit? What is it? Anyway, let us give to the Lord. Yeah. Okay, Basar.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the lecture. You mentioned having a child as a material desire, but at the same time there are some souls, let's say, jivas who would like to have Krishna as their child. So for me, I come to the conclusion that reciprocating love with a jiva soul is like a material desire, but when you want to reciprocate this love with Krishna, then it's a spiritual desire.
Not always. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur desired someone who could help him in his mission, and then he got Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as his child. And I'm not the one to say that there was material desire there. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was a jiva. So one can also desire to have a pure devotee child. Right? then it may also be faultless. But yes, if you desire Krishna as a child, then everything is fine. Yes. Yeah, you can get married and try and get Krishna as a child. And if you do, then you have to invite me to your house regularly. And I will come and stay for a long time. I think we'll all come to visit. I think you should live with us then. And Krishna is your child. You can't forget your friends, when you become successful.
Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the nice lecture. You talked about the pushing of the senses and the material desires, and that if we follow them, then they just get stronger. So what can I do to overcome this lust for material things?
We engage the senses in the service of Krishna. So, in the Nectar of Devotion, it's explained that the same senses that bind us to the material energy, when engaged in devotional service, they are liberating us from the material energy. So this is the solution. Simply engage the material senses, all of them, in the service of Krishna. Therefore, use all our energy, all our abilities in the service of Krishna. And in this way, Srila Prabhupada told Kirtananda, he said, by decorating the deity as beautiful as you can, you will forget everything about the beauty of the material world. So that's an example of engaging the senses in the service of the Lord. We also hear that description, the legs to go to the temple, the eyes to see the deity, the nose to smell flowers or scents, like you have this Mayapur Nisringa oil and nothing comes close to it, not even Simachalam Nisringa oil. So far, I'm sorry Simachalam, but you guys haven't cracked it yet. Mayapur is still leading, and every time you get it like, oh, that's Mayapur. It's the nose knows it. The nose knows, The nose knows this is, and immediately you're in Mayapur. Because that oil is empowered by Lord Chaitanya. So it's hard to compete. You can have a go at it, and try to improve but the Simachalam oil, too sweet. Nice, but too sweet. But this Nisringa oil from Mayapur, it's Nisringa. What a smell. So engage the nose. Instead of sticking our nose into all kinds of unwanted things like that. Yeah, engage the senses in the service of Krishna. Therefore it's said we must work hard for Krishna. See, we cannot just meditate on Krishna because we are not so exalted. Therefore we must use the body and we use all the senses and work hard for Krishna. And if we work hard for Krishna, then the mind becomes blissful. Then material desires diminish. Okay, yes, okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, you spoke also, as far as I understood, about renunciation, and that this is not enough, to get out of the world. And I just read yesterday in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Mahaprabhu explains to Sanatana Goswami that when one is when one should not try to get some cities, something, it's like material attachment, still material, but if one is not if one is, the Prabhupada says, if one is embarrassed of the material world, then it's also not. It also doesn't. It's not enough to go out of the material world. So in these days, I find myself quite easy to say, what the heck do we want here? You cannot even enjoy anymore. You be, kind of. So it's easy to say, let's go out of here. But if it's not enough to just be, as Prabhupada says, embarrassed of the material world, so how we should meditate then on the material world, especially in this time and age where everything is a little bit complicated. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, our real goal in life is smartavyam satatam vishnur vismartavyo najatasit sarvavidingi sedushu etyor eva kinkaram, to always remember Krishna, never forget him, and to just think of making arrangements for Krishna's pleasure. And with that material energy. Therefore, the level of being embarrassed in the material world is a lower level of dealing with the material energy. The better means is how to use this material energy in the service of Krishna. And if you look at, that's what Prabhupada did, right? He just mobilized a lot of material energy in the service of Krishna. And then that's very auspicious, like to make this temple even more wonderful than it already is. That's wonderful. So like that, we can have our relationship with the material energy in a positive way by doing things. Otherwise, you're right. We can't enjoy anymore. Why would I even stay in the material world? I may as well give up my body now, right? Just like, no. So many nice things we can do. So many nice things we can do. It takes a long time, like there are the kids and they don't know what life is about, and it takes years to figure it out and to get fixed up. Now we are a little bit fixed up by all the mercy. Whew. Now there's so much we can do. So it's not enough time. So now we have still a lot to do. That's why we stay young. When you're old, you kind of, the mood of being old is the mood of giving up, letting go. The mood of being young is seeing opportunities. So let us see many opportunities for Krishna. It's amazing things can be done. And this time, now that the whole world is a little crazy and this and that, and I guess good time to develop some self-sufficiency or something like that. Good time for that. Good time to develop a strong Brahminical culture, so that when people come, that there's something for them to connect to. So much to do. So much. So I feel that we can use the material energy in a positive way, rather than being embarrassed by it. And that's the way out. Okay, Sanjay.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Yes, I will take two of your statements to bridge. You spoke about self-sufficiency, and you also spoke about working hard for Krishna. And there's one statement which I heard from a senior devotee, and as far as I understood, it's quoted by it's a quote of quoting Srila Prabhupada, who said that about farming. He said 3 months a year you grow the land, and 9 months you just chant Hare Krishna. or engage in devotional service. So, and I don't see that as a reality here. Like here, it's 3 months in the winter we don't do, and then 9 months a year we do. So there seems to be a different concept of growing food and time-wise, and so maybe you know something about this, or maybe you can share anything to help us understand this more deeply. Like the material thing is there, we grow food and this and that, but it doesn't seem to be. It should not be such a preoccupation.
Yeah, no, it's generally it's not. It depends what you grow. You know, some things are more labor intensive to grow. The modern way of farming is obviously very is about growing cash crops, huge crops of the same thing, to make money. So that was never Srila Prabhupada's idea. Self-sufficiency is we grow what we need for our own food. So there's a lot of variety in what we grow. Grains, in principle, don't take a lot of work. You prepare the field, you put the seeds in the field, and then it depends on rain. Of course, if you have no rain, then you have to do irrigation, but that's artificial, right? In a proper society, there should be proper rain, anat bhavanti bhutani, and there should be sacrifice and so on. So then there's rain, and then the next time you really have to look after that grain is at the time of the harvest. Then you have to work again. So I have put in some crops in my farming days in Australia, and it doesn't take so much time. You have to plow the fields and prepare the fields, take out rocks, stones, and wood trunks and things like that. So it's nice, even fields, clean, nothing inside. And just it grows. And so that should not take more than 1.5 months. Then the harvest, same thing, 1.5 months. Everything is in. Everything is ready. So you can see the actual work time is 3 months. And the rest of the year, you keep an eye on your field, but it's not a lot to do. That's grains. Vegetables is a bit more work, but those you grow in smaller quantities. And if we learn how to do it properly, then different plants have companion plants. And as a result, the companion plants, they're protecting each other. Yeah? And there's a whole science about companion plants. So if you put one particular plant, you grow another one next to it, then all insects will stay away from that plant. So then you don't have that problem. Now I'm planting someone, and oh my God, here are the bugs, and what am I going to do now? And no, they don't come because you have put the certain companion plants and so on. So there's a whole science of farming, nowadays called permaculture, which is not so labor intensive, where you let nature work for you. That's the idea. So in that sense, it may be possible. It may be possible to not just always be working on the land and like. And in the winter, you just it's not much to do. You know, in the winter you just wait. No, that's only at the end of the winter. But in the winter, your fields are frozen. There's nothing you can do. You got to wait till the frost is out of the ground. Then you can start plowing. And then, when there's really no more frost, then you can seeding. So there is a lot of time in farming that we're not so busy with the land. I think so. And we can learn that art. Yeah, most of us are city people. What do we know about farming? No.
I
Hare
all
Krishna
the
Maharaj.
assembled sages.
In regard to the personal bhajan and development of a relationship with Krishna, I'm curious. Of course, I know to some degree, but why do we have such a predominance on Madhurya Ras, also as in bhajan, when Nityananda, being Balaram, and his associates were on Sakya Ras, and how could that be an option, or is it an option at all, even though there is a predominance on Madhurya Ras?
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes particularly in the mood of Srimati Radharani, right, to taste the depth of her love for him and so on. So that creates the focus on Madhurya Ras, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself comes in that bhav. But we also see that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Prabhupada emphasize that there are 5 rasas and that the devotee is in any of 5 rasas. And Prabhupada was not putting so much emphasis on Madhurya Ras. Neither did Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And Prabhupada would certainly address the other rasas, especially the 3 higher rasas, parental and friendship, quite often. So I think that this is one of the things that changed in more recent times. That in more recent time, a lot of focus on Madhurya Ras, right? and a lot of emphasis on Madhurya Ras, and appreciating that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is coming to teach also that Madhurya Ras. But we are not recommended to just focus on Madhurya Ras. We can wait. Raghunath Das is saying that on my own accord, I will simply focus on dasya. I'll simply focus on servitorship. And then if I'm invited by the Vaishnavas to a higher rasa, then okay, then I'm open to, by the senior Vaishnava of course, but then I'm open to consider that also. But on my own, I'll just go for dasya. So Raghunath Das gives the example then. Let us just focus on dasya, and then everything else will develop. Right? And that's what Srila Prabhupada was teaching. Right? Prabhupada was just saying, devotional service, devotional service, devotional service. Let us focus on devotional service. Yeah, so dasya is the essence of all relationships, isn't it? And once the dasya, the servitorship is very strong, then the ras can develop naturally in the advanced stages, Nistha Ashakti, Nistha Ruchi Ashakti, then we can start to develop an interest in a particular rasa, which is genuine and deep. But premature is not so required. Therefore, the emphasis should be on devotional service, dasya. Anyone? She left now. Okay. Last, Sri Ram. Ananda.
Hare Krishna, one of your last... This was a very nice explanation with the Dasya Rasa, I liked it. But you said, and I think according to Sanchai's question, you said that we should build a Brahminical culture, that people, when they come here, they have something. So is it the Brahminical culture what attracts people and keeps them here? If we more going in the direction of Vedic and this and that, is it this what attracts people here, or sometimes I think it's more the strong community, family? Of course we have the philosophy, but what should be the focus of our culture?
First of all, pure devotional service, and then supported by a strong Brahminical culture. Then followed by a very warm family culture. Like that. The focus on pure devotional service, that is of course the essence in life. But because we fail to do so, and because also new people, what can they do with it? So if there's a strong Brahminical culture, that means a strong culture of engaging people in hearing, chanting, and worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that, for example, that we don't just put some grains in the ground, but that the Brahmanas come out and are asking for blessings at the time of planting, and that it's a festival. That's important. That when the harvest comes, that definitely, again, there is a ceremony, and the first grains are offered by the Brahmanas to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All these kind of activities turn the whole community into something transcendental. Otherwise, if we just have a nice family atmosphere and we all hold hands in a circle and go kumbaya, and it's like, it's so nice. That's not enough to make us overcome our own weakness, because we have hridaya durbalyam, we have inherent weakness in the heart, which we have to overcome by strong spiritual culture. So the Brahminical culture is really needed. It's like you see in India, in Vrindavan, someone moves into a new house, right? And one Brahmana sits there and recites the whole Bhagavad Gita, right? And over a loudspeaker. It's part of like the whole thing, it's like, it creates so much auspiciousness. You're walking through town and you hear, oh, someone's moving into a new house. Oh, they're reciting the whole Bhagavad Gita. Next door is the school where the boys study it's the Sanskrit school where they study the Bhagavatam, and in different melodies, and it's just such transcendental sound vibration should echo from everywhere, so that there is that strong culture. We need that strong Brahminical culture, but a nice family culture also. Not Brahminical culture and no family culture. No. So the family culture is important, but secondary to the Brahminical culture, which is secondary to pure devotional service. Dasya. Thank you so much. Okay, it was nice. Thank you for letting me sleep here and feeding me for a night. I will now take your leave and come back in about a week's time and see you again. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Krishna?
When as Rupa Goswami says, inspiration follows a certain particular devotee, is this the invitation? Raghunath says, so now that's it, is okay, is it sure?